Welcome to preseason football in Canada, where the field is made up and the points don't matter. I'm Untitled Chapter, host of Porn Other Packers podcast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for checking out this video. What the hell did we just witness last night? There were field issues, there were injuries galore, there were head-scratching moments that seemed to occur very late on in that game. This is exactly why I choose to drink when I discuss some of these Packer games. And I think without further ado, it is time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. So the Green Bay Packers wrapped up their third preseason game of the year last night against the Oakland Raiders, and about 2 hours before kickoff, we started to get notifications and reports that the field conditions might not be up to par for what the NFL standard would be, or for what the Green Bay Packers more specifically want it to be. And you see, those crazy Canadians to the north, they don't play football the same way that we play football in America or in the NFL. And you might be thinking to yourself, yeah, what do you mean they don't play football the same? So the goalpost is positioned a little bit differently, but they follow the same rules, right? Well, just take a look at this.
36 yards for the win. 1 point would also win it. Here we go. Duvall, the kick is up. It is wide. Knocked down, now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Gotta get 5 yards.
Now Duvall kicks it back through.
Gotta kick it out again.
They will kick it out, but they don't get it out. Who has the football? It's a touchdown, Montreal.
Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what the hell did I just witness? And if you can disregard the fact that that was just an awful 36-yard kick, and also ignore the fact that the guy took that ball and decided just to punt it out of the end zone, you'll have noticed that the field goal post is located near the front of the end zone versus the end of the end zone, and that is wherein lies the issues that we ran into with field conditions on Thursday night. So they removed the field goal post, and there was a hole left over, for lack of better terms, that kept some concerns or kept some of the starters off of the field for the game. So they tried to patch it up, they tried to cover it up. Maybe I'll find a picture and post it on here and essentially how bad the field was. But regardless, they decided at that point to change a 100-yard field down to an 80-yard field. So the touchdown or the goal line started at the 10-yard line, respectively, on each side, and the teams played with an 80-yard field. I have never seen anything like this before. When I heard that they were shortening the field, I didn't believe it was going to happen, and when it actually came true, I was so glad it did, because it gave me fuel for the fire of things that I could talk about tonight, and that was just absolutely absurd. According to Gruden, they interviewed Gruden after the game, and according to him, he states that the idea to play an 80-yard field had more to do with the Packers than the Raiders. He was quoted saying, "I'm not going to make a big deal about the field. We liked the field. We thought the field was perfectly ready to roll. You'll have to ask Green Bay about that." And who knows how much truth there is to that. According to LaFleur, he didn't have a whole lot of input on whether or not that it would be an 80-yard field. So this is obviously upper management. This is more Mark Murphy, possibly Gutekunst, making these decisions. And this all goes back to that player safety. We don't want injuries, and we don't want to have that risk of people, potential starters being injured and all that fun stuff that goes with the preseason. So they've been very cautious with their injuries, between Aaron Rodgers back last week and Aaron Jones and his hamstring, and who knows what's going on with Kevin King. But this is just proof to the pudding that they are not going to start any of their guys. And then when you talk about this 80-yard field, there was no kickoffs. This was absolutely absurd. They started the game on the 25-yard line, or the 15, depending on where you want to put that goal line into that equation. So just wild game. I think that threw everything off course for what the game plan was. Obviously, Tim Boyle started versus Rodgers. A lot of 33 starters sat out of the game. 33 starters did not participate last night. And my what to watch going into tonight's game, or excuse me, last night's game. You can tell I'm recording this. You know when I'm recording this. So my what to watch, obviously heading into the game, were two big things. We wanted to see Rodgers play. I wanted to get Rodgers out there on the field, take a couple snaps with the first string offense, start to get acclimated with the play calling and just the flow of a game. And we wanted to see Aaron Jones out there. It was his first chance to get some preseason snaps. He also sat out. And then we wanted to look at the defense. The defense is supposed to, or was supposed to, start to, get gelling together, because Mitch Trubisky and that offense of Chicago is just around the corner, less than 2 weeks away. And this was going to be, the chance for them to show us their pass rush and put pressure on Derek Carr. This was a chance for the defense to show us that they've improved on tackling. And yes, they were much improved last night on tackling. Yes, there were a couple missed tackles here and there, but that improvement on tackling had nothing to do with your first string. It mainly had to do with your backups, because the entire game was littered with backups, and none of my what to watch actually came true. So what does this mean? What does this mean heading in 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away, heading into Chicago? Are we going to be in trouble? I was convicted in my previous video that Rodgers needed to play, but now we're just flying by the heel of our... I'm so bad at sayings. You guys are going to learn I'm terrible at sayings. We're just going with the flow at this point, right? There's nothing we can do. Rodgers is already ruled out for the fourth preseason game against Kansas City. So that means that regardless of what happens, he's going to have to be ready. He's going to have to go out there, and it's Aaron frickin' Rodgers, and we should be good that on that point that he'll be just fine. John Kuhn did ask Rodgers during the game about how he felt about sitting out and what that meant for preparation. Rodgers was quoted saying, "Well, we need a good week of practice, and then after Kansas City, get into a regular practice week and get ready for Chicago." He says, Rodgers goes on to say, "We will be ready," and I have to believe that they'll be ready. If there's one silver lining that comes from this lack of playing time for starters, is that it's going to create a real big element of surprise for Chicago. They're going to have nothing to go on whatsoever, and I don't really know how much studying goes into that first week of football and looking at preseason footage or anything like that. But I have no idea what to expect from this offense. I have no idea what to expect from... I have a little bit of an idea what to expect from this defense, but this could bode a huge advantage to us, but it could also do a coin toss there, and we might also be, slow to start and not ready, and it could be the second half, we're down 0-20, and we need to mount an incredible Aaron Rodgers comeback. But it'll be interesting. I think the decision was right. I think if there were any concerns about the field, we should have kept Rodgers out. We should have kept the starters out. If you watch the game, you could see that it seemed like there were players that were going down constantly for little ticky-tack injuries, leg concerns, all that good stuff. And it was good just to know that, okay, our main players are now not out there on the field. And you can kind of, take a deep sigh, take a deep breath, and know that, okay, we're going to go healthy into week 1 against Chicago. But let's talk about some highlights Thursday night, right? So the game took place regardless. They did play the entire game. I was curious if they would call it at any point, but they continued to play. And there are some highlights from this. So Tim Boyle, 16 of 25 for 191 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He had a passer rating of 113.9. He went into halftime with a 21 point, by putting 21 points on the board, which is exactly what they finished with. And through 3 preseason games, keep this stat in your mind. Through 3 preseason games, Boyle has gone 31 of 57. He's thrown 338 yards in his limited playing time. He has 5 touchdowns, and he has 0 interceptions, and he will be the backup quarterback to Aaron Rodgers. There isn't a doubt in my mind. There would have been more doubt in my mind had Kizer started over Tim Boyle, but the fact that Boyle took that lead and was given the chance to play the first half tells me that Matt sees exactly what I see, and that is that Kizer is not going to work out for that backup quarterback position. He's had more time in the league to develop. He has failed to live up to those expectations or continue to grow. Last night he was 4 of 7 for 24 yards. Those are second half stats. Those are stats where you're going against a second and third string defense, and you're only able to go 4 of 7 for 24 yards. You didn't throw a touchdown. You had your one interception at the end of game, which I will brush off the side. I won't ping you for that. But 24.4 passer rating, and as I mentioned, he failed to put up a single point in the second half when you should be able to score some points because you're only on an 80-yard field. Move the damn field down the ball, Kaiser, because you're not going to be on the Packers team if you keep playing like this. So I think it's already been written. Unless something catastrophic happens over this next week, I think it's a certainty that Boyle will get that backup role. I am happy with that. I think either way, if one of these guys becomes the backup and Rodgers goes down, we're completely screwed. But hey, we will not get down about hypotheticals. We will just keep Rodgers in the game and we'll win ourselves a Super Bowl. Other highlights, you have to talk about Trevor Davis. Trevor Davis came back from injury, and Trevor Davis had an outstanding game last night. He had 5 receptions for 78 yards. He had 1 touchdown. He had 1 end-around rush where he picked up 18 yards, and he looks like a man that wants to be on the team and probably deserves to be on that team. With him just going out there and lighting up the world, it solidifies that he built upon his OTAs, his early training camp, and he stepped up when he needed to step up. And that I'm proud of the guy. I think that's absolutely awesome. Good for Trevor Davis. He belongs. I would love to see him make the team. Darius Shepard, Davis's main competition, also had a solid outing last night. He had some beautiful catches. He finished with 3 receptions and 40 yards. So commendable performance by him. You have Kumaro, aka Mr. Consistency. It seems we talk about him a lot on this show. 2 catches, 30 yards, and 1 touchdown out of those 2 catches. And then quite frankly, that's about it. I mean, you have things like Lazard. He had some nice catches throughout the game, but he also stopped on a route that Boyle threw a pass to. He stopped on his route. Could have been a potential interception. So he's got some room to grow, some mistakes to maybe correct throughout his young career. Trey Carson ran for 32 yards on 9 carries and 1 touchdown. He had some dominant looking runs last night. He actually had some really good runs that were called back because of random holding. But he also had a nice 11-yard screen pass, so good job on Carson. Not sure if you're going to make the team because there is depth above you, but great performance that possibly makes the practice squad and can be someone that we can call up if we need someone like him or if we have any injuries at running back. The offensive line as a whole, I think, is looking really good. Both Kaiser and Boyle have had time to get the ball out and make passes, and this has to give us a lot of hope about what they can do with Rodgers under center. I think that was one of our biggest question marks heading into the season. We obviously went out and brought in Billy Turner. We spent some money there. We drafted Elton Jenkins, hopefully to pick up where Lane Taylor is kind of falling, or that there's a competition there at least. So if this offensive line is creating time for our backup quarterbacks and they can just create more time for Aaron Rodgers, that's going to do wonders for so many things. When Rodgers has time, great things happen. And I'm not really sure if that has a lot to do with the more running yards that we were doing. We had 94 running yards last night, but it'll be really interesting if that offensive line is good. We're going to be a much better and improved team. And then last, you have to talk about Ty Summers. Again, he led the team in tackles last night with a total of 9 solo tackles out of that bunch, with his counterpart, Curtis Bolton, having 2 early on before leaving with injury. Let's take a drink break and we'll talk about these injuries. So as I talked about earlier with those questionable field conditions, it did seem like there were Packers players either dropping like flies or just slow to get up. My wife and I were laughing about it at one point, not because we'd like to see Packers injured, but because it just seemed like there was always a Packer player on the ground needing assistance to get up. So like I mentioned, Curtis Bolton went out with an injury early on in the game. He was shown on the sidelines at the beginning of the 4th quarter with crutches, so that's never something good that you want to see from a player. I think Curtis Bolton did really well last week against the Ravens, and I think that he had a great start to the game. I love his energy. Hopefully it's nothing long term, and this raises a lot of question marks about what we're going to do about that linebacker position. Again, Gutekunst doesn't think that the Oren Burks injury is going to be long term, But if you have Burks and Bolton out, really you're super thin. You're looking at Ty Summers, and then you got to question whether or not they have to go get someone to fill. But we'll wait. We'll see. We'll just wait for more news to come out on the severity of that one. Rashawn Gary, he went out not once but twice. The first one, I think, I don't know, he might have got the wind knocked out of him. It didn't seem like anything serious, but the second one, I think he got a concussion. They haven't reported anything, at least at the time of this recording, they haven't reported anything, but he tried to make a late tackle from behind. It was in the second quarter, and he kind of hit his head back weird. It looked concussion-like, but he went off the field. He did not return. I think there was some uproar about whether or not he should have returned to the field after his first little scare of an injury, but it didn't seem, like I said, it didn't seem like anything too major. I think he needs to get out there and play, and it's football. Things like this happen. Equanimeous St. Brown left the field with an injury in the third quarter, and boy, did that one look probably the worst of all of them. I hate leg injuries. They love to show replays of players getting hurt and their legs bending in ways that they shouldn't. I've dealt with knee problems throughout my young athletic career back in high school, and I just can't stand watching it. They reported that he was in a boot. He had a boot on his left ankle and had crutches after the game, so that is not good. That's not what you want to see out of one of your young wide receivers. And St. Brown's injury could clear up this entire wide receiving picture. I will preview. Well, let's just talk about it. So if St. Brown goes out, Jamon Moore can't catch the football. I think it's a little bit clear with the 7 wide receivers that we will have on this roster, pending any catastrophic injuries that pop up in the meantime. So obviously you have Adams, Allison, MVS, Kumaro, you have Davis, you have Shepard, and you have Lazard. Those are your I think I counted 8. I thought I had 7 or 8. I can't count right now. But those are the guys that I would say are your wide receivers. I think you have a lot of depth there. You have a lot of talent. These guys are going out there and they're making incredible catches. I think that we are stacked at wide receiver. A bunch of no-name guys. I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, with that injury of St. Brown, that kind of makes that picture a whole lot clearer. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but we can definitely put him on injured reserve or, injured reserve, and then we don't have to worry about another team picking him up, and we can save him until next year and keep that wide receiver competition going strong. Not that I'm hoping that his year is over, but there could be a silver lining to something like that. One last crazy moment from last night's game. So I don't know how many of you caught the game or how many of you stuck around for the end of the game, kind of like whether or not you're sticking around towards the end of this video. But what was going on with the timeout situation at the end of the game? I mean, they made a big deal of it on TV, and I was just trying to sit there and eat my dinner and watch this, and it was so confusing. Green Bay had 3 timeouts. I thought Oakland only had 1 timeout. Packers were up 21-19. Raiders are in field goal position. Somebody's calling timeouts. I think there were a total of 4 timeouts called, but after all the dust settled on everything, at that point, Green Bay had 2 timeouts left and Oakland had none, and math just didn't work in that favor. The scoreboard was showing different timeouts. It was a circus last night. I don't know if Canada was high for the last couple months because of their legalities of marijuana use, and I think I sound like a fool when I say marijuana, but something, it was just embarrassing. I don't think things turned out too well for Canada. I think when you had all the support to be there from Packers fans and Raiders fans, I think the intention for that 3rd preseason game is that you have your starters out there that typically play the first half, but for sure a quarter. They did not go on the field. There was drama put around it. It's just disappointing. It's too bad it didn't work out. Especially with all that time to prepare, it's unfortunate. But of the crazy thing that happened, that timeout fiasco was absolutely absurd. So what's next? What can we look forward to? Well, I can tell you what I'm going to look forward to. Next Thursday is going to be our final preseason game. Do not expect any starters to play in that game either. It sounds like that's going to be primarily your backup situations, people on the roster bubble, trying to make a spot, because 2 days after that will be the roster cuts. So not this Saturday, But next Saturday, August 31st, the Packers will cut down to a 53-man roster. That means on Friday's video next week, I will post my predictions, because I think that stuff is kind of fun, of what the rosters will shake out to be, the roster will shake out to be. And then maybe I'm going to have myself a little bit of fun and do a preseason clips episode early on next week as well. If you are new to this show, or to this podcast, I tried something a couple months ago when I was first starting this channel, and it's just me kind of talking about some highlights or interviews and clips, if you will, that pop up throughout Packer news, and then I show the clip and do a little bit of commentary. I think I'm going to do something like that for the preseason edition, and so keep an eye out for that on your radar. We're running out of time. We have regular season football to talk about. It's just around the corner, and to wrap up the video. Until next time, and then I'm going to chug this. This is a new thing I'm trying. Until next time, God, I drink beer like Aaron Rodgers. I will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.